makes a Fire Emblem game? Legendary swords. And it's no surprise that the two main protagonists of the Elibe saga get two of the sleekest swords in the series. Today, we're going to be talking about Durandal and the Binding Blade. Nobody really knows where Durandal came from. The only concrete history known to Elibe is that it was used by the hero Roland during the Scouring. When the war was over, all of the divine weapons were sealed away across the continent. Durandal's resting place was in a cave north of Ostia, and it would sit there for about 1,000 years. The seal was disturbed when the evil Lord Nurgle sought to become the most powerful being in all of Elibe. Eliwood and his gang ventured to the North Ostian cave to find Durandal, which could defeat Nurgle with his power. To wield Durandal, however, the hero Athos commanded Eliwood to show his strength in a series of trials.
I'm not losing!
After completing them, the spirit of Roland appeared and gifted him the power to wield the sword. It was at this moment an ice dragon invaded the cave. Eliwood, guided by Durandal, killed the ice dragon to protect his friends. However, the ice dragon actually was one of Eliwood's friends. Ninian's death causes Eliwood to swear off using the sword in the next chapter, until Athos reminds him that they needed to defeat Nurgle. Eliwood promises that he will not hesitate the next time he wields it. During the final chapter, Athos infuses Durandal with magic that makes it more effective against Nurgle. After the battle, Durandal is returned to the cave in Ostia and sealed. Durandal's design is very unique, as it really doesn't resemble any type of medieval sword. Seriously guys, I couldn't find much on anything that looks like this. However, I think I might have found my answer. One of the most interesting things about Durandal is not its design, but the fact that nobody can really agree on how many hands you need to hold it. In the Blazing Blade, Eliwood easily swings it around with one hand. This would make it like the medieval arming swords that Fire Emblem weapons usually draw inspiration from. However, in Fire Emblem Heroes, both Eliwood and Roy's art depict them holding the sword with two hands. It would be excusable if it were just Roy, as he is a very small boy, but Eliwood's grip suggests that the sword is actually supposed to model a medieval longsword. Looking at Durandal's design, it's clear that the artists really love dark colors. The blade is standard sword silver, but all the other aspects are just black. The only other color on the sword is red, seen on the pommel and the guard. I would say that Durandal is probably the most realistic sword we've covered so far on this channel, but now that Fire Emblem itself seems to disagree on how it's supposed to be held, I'm not so sure. The Binding Blade is the strongest Elibean legendary weapon. As we discovered in the last video, the Binding Blade was originally wielded by the hero Hartmut, along with the significantly lamer Ekisax. When Hartmut faced Idun, the Binding Blade sensed his pity for her and sent her into a state of slumber instead of killing her. With the power of the sword and the Fire Emblem combined, Idun was sealed into the Dragon's Temple forever. After this, the sword is stored in the Shrine of Seals forever. But this is Fire Emblem, and nothing is forever in Fire Emblem. During the events of the Binding Blade, the King of Bern, Zephiel, goes insane and wishes to rid Elibe of all humans.
Pointless. All of it. Utterly pointless.
Obviously, Roy and his gang need to stop Zephiel before he destroys an entire race, so they go across the land to retrieve the legendary weapons. After receiving 7 of the 9 weapons, the crew ventures to southern Bern, where they find the Shrine of Seals. After retrieving the Apocalypse Tome, Roy goes to the altar of the Binding Blade and unseals the sword using the Fire Emblem. Now that Roy has his big boy sword, he fights Zephiel and takes Ekisax.
For those I must protect, I cannot lose.
He has now retrieved all 9 weapons. It's time for the final battle.
I will win!
When Roy faces Idun, there's no longer any hesitation within the Binding Blade. He strikes her demon dragon form down and returns her to her human form. Her human form is not enough to sustain the demon dragon, and without it, the dragon's temple cannot stand. The temple falls to pieces, crushing Idun and killing her once and for all. Wow, that was really sad. Let's talk about weapon anatomy now. The Binding Blade, being significantly smaller than Durandal, can be classified as a standard arming sword. Interestingly enough, the Binding Blade actually shares a lot of similarities with Yggdrasil's holy sword Turfing. Both have relatively short fullers and green accents on the grip. Both also have red jewels in the middle of their guards. However, their guards are much differently designed. The Binding Blade has accents of blue instead of Turfing's black accents. But, how many hands do you need to wield the binding blade? I don't know. And thinking about it anymore will probably give me a headache. So now we have 2 of 9 legendary weapons covered. What's next for this series on Elibe Lore? Well, next time we'll be taking a look at some characters within the series. This time it's gonna be Ninian, Nils, and Nurgle. As always guys, stay tuned.